Hey guys. Hello, gorgeous. In the news today, Steve Whitmire, the longtime voice of Kermit the Frog, has been given the old heave-ho. Steve released a blog statement stating that he was notified back in October by Disney that he will no longer be the voice of Kermit the Frog, and this video isn't just about Disney's decision to replace Steve, but how they went about it. I don't think it's very cool, and unfortunately it seems to be a recurring trend. Whitmire did release a blog statement, which I'm going to read in its entirety. Some of the news sites have just been quoting a line or two here or there, but this has a lot of heart and soul to it, and it really illustrates how much the character of Kermit meant to Whitmire. So I'm going to read the whole thing. He says, "Dear friends, in 1978, when I was asked to join The Muppet Show, the Muppets were the hottest thing on the planet. I was invited to sit at the feet of the true masters, Jim Henson, Frank Oz, Jerry Nelson, Richard Hunt, and Dave Goelz, working alongside them, absorbing different skills from each as we, along with many talented others, contributed towards the same shared vision, the vision of one man. The result became a skill set for myself that was sort of a compilation of the best of them all. For me, the Muppets are not just a job, or a career, or even a passion. They are a calling, an urgent, undeniable, impossible to resist way of life. This is my life's work since I was 19 years old. I feel that I am at the top of my game, and I want all of you who love the Muppets to know that I would never consider abandoning Kermit or any of the others, because to do so would be to forsake the assignment entrusted to me by Jim Henson, my friend, my mentor, but even more, my hero. As I am sure you can imagine, I have experienced every possible emotion since October 2016. When I received a phone call from the Muppet Studios executives to say they were recasting. Through a new business representative, I have offered multiple remedies to their two stated issues, which had never been mentioned to me prior to that phone call. I wish that we could have sat down, looked each other in the eye, and discussed what was on their minds before they took such a drastic action. I have remained silent the last 9 months in hopes that Disney Company might reverse their course. Doing what is best for the Muppets is the lens through which all my interactions have been filtered. Given the opportunity, I remain willing to do whatever is required to remedy their concerns, because I feel my continued involvement with the characters is in the best interest of the Muppets. For decades, you have been an invaluable partner in co-creating the existence of the Muppets, and I am humbled by your devotion to them. There is so much more for us to talk about, so I have created this site as a place to connect and share on all things Muppet, past, present, and future. Please forgive any faux pas, as I have not been active in social media previously and have a serious learning curve. I just want you all to know that I am sorry if I have disappointed any of you at any point throughout our journey, and to let everyone know that I am devastated to have failed in my duty to my hero." So that's Steve Whitmire's thoughts, and the statement from the Muppet Studio, which is owned by Disney, is, "The Muppet Studio thanks Steve for his tremendous contributions to Kermit the Frog and the Muppets franchise. We wish him well in his future endeavors." And after reading those two statements, why does that song from Sesame Street pop into my head? One of these things is not like the other. Now, I'm a huge fan of tons of characters that are owned by corporations. And I understand that for a lot of these great creative ideas to come to life, sometimes, unfortunately, the billion-dollar power of a corporation is required so that the character can be shown in a cartoon and cast by a talented voice actor, have impressive CGI represent them on the screen, have factories create action figures and other merchandise so that we can hold a representation of that character in our hand and feel the magic. It's a real balancing act to be emotionally invested in these characters, but at the same time constantly be aware that they are, in many cases, owned by a corporation. And what is a corporation's main goal? It is to make money. Cut and dry, black and white, it's to make money. And a lot of the time, the best way, the most effective way to make money is to pull people's heartstrings, to make them feel alive, because their actual life is not making them feel alive. They go and they work jobs they hate. They're in a relationship that they can't stand, but for whatever reason can't walk away from it. And so entertainment, a lot of the time, TV shows and movies, create an escape, a break, and maybe even something that sparks something inside them, keeps their little dim flicker of a flame still going. And so corporations try to do things that warm the heart so that they can make more money. And it would be nice to think that charity, honorable works, things that are for the good of humanity are very important to corporations. But unfortunately, the type of person that rises to the top of a corporation is just not wired that way. It's just not how it has been, how it is, or how it will be. And so the way that this whole thing was handled, I think, really illustrates quite clearly the difference between someone who is so full of love compared to a corporation that's all about making the money. In terms of how Whitmire performed Kermit, when Henson passed away, I was still pretty young, and it was a jarring change because he wasn't doing an exact imitation of Jim Henson's Kermit. And Jim Henson's Kermit was just basically Jim Henson with a little tweak to it. Really kind of coming from deep inside type of voice. And I never thought Whitmire was really imitating that voice as well as a lot of other people might be able to imitate it. But this isn't about a critique on Whitmire's performance. This video is about the way in which a corporation went about letting this guy know that he won't be doing this role anymore. For Whitmire, my opinions on his performance aside, one thing I won't deny is that he was extremely passionate. In terms of the puppeteering of Kermit, he was absolutely excellent. He always physically invoked the life that Jim Henson brought to Kermit. And to take over, for Jim Henson to take over Kermit, that is not something that a lot of people could do. And some people might have just taken it as a job and went, who cares? It's just a puppet. Who gives a crap? But the story of how Whitmire took over the role it's such a beautiful story, and sad, because Whitmire was devastated at the loss of his dear friend and mentor. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't put the puppet on because for him it wasn't just a bunch of materials, a little toy to play with. It was symbolic. It was symbolic of the essence of Jim Henson, the beautiful, childlike, wonderful, loving essence of Jim Henson. And Jim Henson was not a corporation guy either. He seemed like a guy who was so filled with genuine heart and soul. Jim Henson, to me, although he did things that made money, he didn't seem to me like a person who was all about the money, whose bottom line was, we have to make people feel good so that we can make a lot of money, so that I can have a vacation home and get a big bonus and own a yacht. I don't think that was Jim Henson's motivation in life. And unfortunately, what happens in the entertainment industry over and over and over again is that people like Jim Henson work themselves, unfortunately sometimes to death, because they're so passionate and believe so strongly in something. And then when it is a success, when the sacrifices have been made, the sacrifices of time, of family, of health, of finances and it is successful, then a corporation comes in and they buy it. After all of the hard work has been done, they take the finished product and then how do we make a profit on this? Let's make those toys that we all love and albums and TV shows, cereal and socks and all that other wonderful stuff. And it's just really sad that when a genuinely sweet guy like Steve Whitmire takes this role over from Jim Henson, has so much respect for it, and then is informed in this way. It's so dry, and they say the right words, but what do I always say on my channel? It's all about tone. Tone is important, and you don't really get it from a written statement like what we've seen from the Muppet Studio, from Disney. But it's just the standard corporate answer. They say all the right words. We thank you for your contribution. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. But there's no genuineness to it. It's just they're saying the right things so they don't get into trouble publicly, public perception. But it doesn't seem to me like they mean it. They release these, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, and Whitmire writes this big, long, heartfelt post about how he feels about it, and there is an imbalance there. And that, I think, is a perfect example of the passionate, loving, intense artist, creator, and the business suit wearing, corporate, money, bottom line type of person that runs the entertainment industry. Now, in this situation, we don't know why Whitmire has been replaced. Disney hasn't said, and Whitmire hasn't said either. So what's going to happen in a situation like that? People are going to start speculating. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who are really into movies and TV in this day and age aren't hopeful. Don't give benefit of the doubt. Don't immediately think it's something good, like, or at least it's the best possible scenario that it can be. Like it's for the good of Whitmire's health or something positive. Instead, I think people are going to speculate that it's something negative. I won't go into speculation myself, but I'm sure it's going to get out there. People are going to take guesses as to why Whitmire, after all this time, has been fired. He has been replaced by Matt Vogel, so I don't think it's an age thing since Matt isn't exactly a spring chicken himself. And Matt does have puppeteering experience. He was the voice of Count Dracula on Sesame Street. And read into this what you will. Matt voiced the evil doppelganger of Kermit, Constantine, in 2014's Muppets Most Wanted. So at the end of the day, Disney can do whatever they want. They can replace whoever they want. But the issue for me isn't that they've replaced this actor from performing his role. The issue is how they did it. And I think it was done with disrespect. If you can run your business however you want, and that goes for a small mom and pop operation, and it goes for a corporation as well. So Disney can do whatever they want with any of their franchises. But what I'm seeing over and over again with these big entertainment corporations is that they don't have time for respect. You would think that someone like Whitmire, who's been doing this role for so long and doing it well, would have earned a little more respect than this. But what the Muppet Studio and Disney is doing is they're treating this just as a job, and they're completely oblivious to the fact that the character is as beloved as he is because the people who performed him, Jim Henson and Steve Whitmire, did not approach it as a job. They approached it as something so much more. They put their love into it. They put their passion into it. And that is extremely devastating, to be that invested, personally invested, to put so much of your own heart and soul into something, and then have the owner of the character say, that will be all. We don't need your services anymore. And to not even offer something else to do. I am really surprised that they haven't, or it hasn't been released, at any rate. Another role for Steve Whitmire, something maybe behind the scenes. I don't know, but it just seems very cut and dry, very emotionless for something that was all about emotion. There's a disconnect there. It's not lining up properly, and the the corporation is the one that comes off seeming really cruel, very heartless, and very greedy for not showing more appreciation other than this really dry statement claiming that they appreciate and they wish him the best in his future endeavors. Very similar situation that came to mind when I heard about this was when this guy, David Hayter, was given the old heave-ho from the Metal Gear Solid franchise. David has been the voice of Solid Snake for a very long time, starting with the PlayStation 1 Metal Gear Solid game, then Metal Gear Solid 2, and the portable games. And when they decided to move away from the character of Solid Snake into the character of Big Boss, which is the original version of Solid Snake being a clone of Big Boss. That was their opportunity, Konami's opportunity to recast and say, well, different character. Looks the same, but different character. Instead, they decided to continue with David Hayter, and so David Hayter did a couple games as Big Boss as well. And when Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain came out, they decided to replace David with Kiefer Sutherland. The reason that David was given was that they were going with facial capture this time, thanks to the increased graphic capability of the PS4. They wanted a real actor, a Hollywood actor. So they cast Kiefer Sutherland. And then David let it be known that Kojima, at least, the director of the Metal Gear Solid franchise, has been trying to replace him for years. And again, things just didn't line up because the actor who performed Solid Snake in the Japanese versions of the games continued to perform Big Boss and then did in Metal Gear Solid 5 as well. So it wasn't an all-across-the-board decision. It was specifically singling out David Hayter and replacing him. David's take on the situation was that Kojima always wanted to work with a big Hollywood actor, and I think the final product speaks for itself. The game is great, but I'm not sure if Kiefer Sutherland took it to another level, and I'm not even sure if he kept it at the same level that David Hayter held it to. David Hayter, much like Steve Whitmire, put his heart and soul into it. You can just see the way he speaks about the character, that the character is a part of him, that we have all grown to love Solid Snake and then Big Boss as well, not just because this voice actor sat down in a studio and read lines that were prepared for him and then walked out and continued with his life. He poured a part of himself into that. The reason that great actors and voice actors are so good is because they don't just come in, sit down, and read it. And it's not just about practicing at home. It's about thinking about it constantly, carrying it, really getting into the character, letting it become a part of you and you become a part of it. It can be a wonderful technique that pays huge dividends in terms of a really unique character, someone that we all really identify with or who inspires us or captures our imagination, who we think is really cool. But at the same time, it's a dangerous technique as well when an actor or actress performs a character that way and that character is owned by a corporation and the corporate leaders don't walk around thinking about Solid Snake, thinking about Kermit the Frog. They're thinking about the bonus. They're thinking about their vacation in the Bahamas. The way that David Hayter was notified he would not be continuing with the role of Big Boss, I think was just as disrespectful as the way Steve Whitmire has been notified. I don't think it's genuine appreciation. I think it's these corporate leaders who are just looking at these actors as people doing a job and what's the big deal. And they're completely oblivious to the passion that is responsible for the success of these characters. That they think that, well, anybody can do it. What's the big deal? Stop making such a big deal about it. These characters become as iconic as they are because the people that perform them made such a big deal about them. It's unfortunate, but the only thing you can really do is to stop supporting the corporations. And unfortunately, most people need their entertainment so badly that they'll just keep watching the shows, watching the movies, paying for the movie tickets, buying the merchandise, because they want those characters that inspire something in them, that make them feel good, make them feel all warm and fuzzy. And so the treatment of the people who bring these characters to life is condoned. So there isn't necessarily anything you can do about it, but just be aware of it. Understand that the way it is the way it is. That these characters that mean so much to us are owned by corporations, and like that, they can do whatever they want with them, and that's just the way the world is set up. I don't know why it is, but it is that these characters have eventually often ended up in the hands of people running corporations who don't understand what it took to bring these characters to life, and unfortunately mishandle these characters a lot of the time. So maybe eventually we'll find out the exact reasons for why Steve Whitmire was released. At the end of the day, it's not really our business, and it shouldn't really affect how we watch the TV shows or the Muppet movies. But I just hope for the best, genuinely, for Steve Whitmire. He seems like a really sweet guy, and it would have been nice if they could have shown him more respect, but sorry, Steve, that's life. And that's something that I always try to keep in mind whenever I'm dealing with any type of big business like that, a big corporation, is that it is what it is, and their bottom line is their bottom line. And no matter how wrong you think it is, no matter how disrespectful you think it is, there is a chip missing in big companies like Disney. As much as we hate to admit it, there is a chip missing, and that's a empathy chip. That's a heart chip. It's a soul chip. And that's just the way the world is. The reason that they are as financially successful as they are is because that chip is missing, or they've had it surgically removed. It impedes the profit margin. So they either ignore it, got rid of it, don't want to deal with it. That's something that I think all actors need to keep in mind, or writers. If eventually the story that you're writing gets purchased by a big corporation, you always have to remember that no matter how much of yourself you've poured into it, and how much of your passion has been the reason for the success of the character, like that, it's over. It's done. Let it go. Walk on. And hopefully for Steve Whitmire, he can continue pouring his passion into other projects. The Jim Henson Company hopefully can find something for him, since they still own Fraggle Rock, and they're working on some other projects too. And Steve used to work on Fraggle Rock. So all the best for Mr. Whitmire, for Mr. Hayter, David Hayter. And while I wish that David Hayter could return to the Metal Gear Solid franchise, I don't think they deserve him. I don't think that after he was treated, they deserve someone with his talent and his heart and soul. And while it would be nice, since it seems like Steve Whitmire is hoping that Disney changes their mind, I don't know if they deserve him after treating him like that. So hoping for the best, but also being realistic about the whole situation. Got a comment about Kermit the Frog, or just a comment in general about how corporations sometimes unceremoniously dump the actors and actresses who are responsible for their character's success? Scroll down and go to town. And to join the Nerd Tribe, hit subscribe.
Third mistake. Yeah!